I remember at some point he was in this internal affairs investigation, and I remember him coming to me one day and going, "You know what? I'm quitting today." And I said, "What do you mean you're quitting? We don't quit. We're police officers. This tap out thing is our side hustle." He said, "No, I'm leaving. I'm tired of this. They're after
His
me.
heart's not in it.
I can't deal with this anymore." And he says, "I'm turning my badge today." I said, "You're crazy." I mean, I'm his partner, and I shouldn't be telling him this, but I'm like, "Man, what are you thinking? It was so hard getting our jobs, and now you're going to go quit?"
Yeah.
And this is your dream job. And he went in and quit that day, and I'll never forget. He came back to me that afternoon, and I was working. I'm a police officer too. He came to me and said, "You can't quit your job because you have to pay our bills for now."
No. Ooh, that's better, right, babe?
Yeah!
Yeah. She founded an architectural concrete company.
He founded a $100 million clothing company.
She took the world by storm as a social media star.
He took the world by storm as a famous serial entrepreneur.
Together we started a business.
And had babies.
Now we're figuring out the best ways to do both.
Join us as we learn from other entrepreneurs going through the same life struggles.
As they share their life hacks about success, love, kids,
and everything in between.
Making a big life change is pretty scary, but you know what's even scarier? Regret. Quote by Zig Ziglar. You are the apple of your own story. If you don't like where this chapter is going, it's okay to start a new one.
Welcome to the Pretty and Punk Podcast. My name is Dan Caldwell, and I'm here with my beautiful wife,
Ildiko Ferenczi.
And we have another great podcast for you guys today.
Yes, we do.
And it's something, well, I'll just jump right into it. When do you turn your side hustle into your main hustle?
Are you ready to turn your passion into your full-time career?
Yeah, you got to know when is that time to make that leap. You got it, that leap of faith that anybody who has a side hustle knows, because it's probably itching in their stomach right now. They're ready to do it, but they just don't know when. And it's actually a question that we just got recently with one of our clients. And I know you were going to say that, but I was just, we get it a lot. I get it a lot. I know you get it. We both did the same thing. We both went through the same question to ourselves that we had to ask ourselves years ago when we quit our main jobs to go, live out our dream.
Another thing.
But before we jump into that, hey guys, we hope you're enjoying today's episode of the Pretty and Punk Podcast. And if you are, and you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. It just takes a second. It means so much to us because it really helps the podcast get out there to more listeners like you guys. And if you know anybody it might help and you can send it to them, we really appreciate that too.
We also love and appreciate your reviews. Even the babies look forward to them every day. If you share this episode on social media today, don't forget to tag us. We want to celebrate you because we know it's not easy being a parent in business, and the way that you juggle things makes you a superhero. That's worth a shout out. Together, we have a community of our personal followers as well, and we just want to put it out there. We want to show everybody that this juggle is possible, and you are our family, and we're so proud and grateful to have you a part of this family. So don't forget, all the links are below in the show notes. And thank you again. And let's get back to the show. As I said, many of us have hidden talents and burning passions that we're pursuing alongside our regular jobs. But then there comes the point when it's time to put everything into that basket. And the question is, when is it time to make this passion your main focus? That's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and I think everybody who, and I said this before, but everybody who has ever started a side hustle has come against this question. that they're asking themselves, is it time now? Should I do it now? I don't want to do it too soon because I'm afraid of, when you're asking yourself that question, a lot of the things that come to mind are, who is this going to affect?
Right.
If I go quit my job, and who else are reliant? Who else in my family? Are there other people in my family that are reliant? Do I have a family? Do I have a family and kids? Do I have a house payment, a car payment? What is on the line here?
That's right. These are all things that you need to take into account. So when I jumped into my passion, I was a solopreneur. I didn't have children dependent on me. If I didn't make it, I knew that I would be okay. So these are things that you need to think about. Today, I think, Dan, if we're making the decision, we have to think long and hard because now we have a family. At that point, I didn't. I'd be okay living off macaroni and cheese. Not that I had to, but I knew that it would be okay. And I was also funding the architectural concrete company with my other job, and my other job was paying me well. And I knew that it would be okay. But then there came a time when those residential jobs turned into civil jobs and luxury homes and commercial jobs, and they were turning from, $10,000 to $30,000. That was the residential, and then all of a sudden it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then when you're doing the commercial jobs, it's a contract that lasts sometimes several years. And to see those contracts signed, knowing that I was going to be on those contracts with my partner and my team, it gave me that sense of security. Okay, now the next level or the next chapter of my life can begin.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, if you can have a contract, that's like, that becomes a no-brainer. Yes. You don't got to think too much at that point. I mean, other than the government falling apart or whoever you have the contract with. But, what about the people that, are working full-time at their county job or whatever, maybe their maintenance or whatever they're doing in their life, and or maybe maybe they work for a computer programming company and they decide to start their own app. At what point do you look at yourself and go, okay, I'm doing this, but it's starting to take away. I know I could be doing so much more if I was just working at my side hustle,
putting 100%
full-time
into this side hustle, right? And I think I think you're the one that has to make that decision, and you're very intuitive. I believe we all have an intuition. We're blessed with an intuition where you see the momentum picking up in your business. You see the demand, and you start to really understand the roadmap that you're on, and you understand the needs of your clients, and you can see them coming in. I feel that there's just this moment where it all clicks, and it doesn't matter what business, because I remember it happening in the jewelry store when I was a kid. I remember seeing it. I remember just having the store filled with people. But then there was also a time when it was a little bit nervous. Things were starting out, and we didn't have as many customers. I know, I can honestly with confidence say, you will know when the time comes, and you have to follow your instinct with that. And you have to think smart. You have to think smart, and you have to think ahead. So if it's your first time and you're struggling to get customers or clients, whatever your product or business is, if you're struggling, that is not the time. But when you feel it picking up that momentum, you know.
Well, I think that's a big question is you got to know, one of the questions you have to ask yourself is your side hustle scalable? Is it something that if you put more time into it, more effort or whatever, quitting your job will do, if you do that, is there an opportunity to scale it? Because then you fall back into the answer that now I know if it's scalable and more time, if I put more time into it, I can scale my business more. Then you've answered the question for yourself. If you're to the point where you're making enough money that you can pay your bills, I think that's the main question is, am I right now making enough money in my side hustle to be able to cover that minimum dollar amount that you need to cover your expenses at home?
And is there a big opportunity to bring more in? Is there other areas that you haven't explored yet that will bring in that financial freedom? That's another very important thing, because you can't just, we all have something that we love and would love to do. And sadly, we have a lot of people come to us to invest in their businesses. And sadly, sometimes it's just a passion and it's just a thing that they love. But I don't understand how sometimes people can't see that this isn't going to give them the financial freedom that they're looking for, but they're so in love with this business or this idea, but it's not going to
pan out. It's not going to.
Yeah,
I know. And that happens to the best of us.
Of course.
I mean, it's happened to me a couple times when I've invested in companies and, had to look back and go, okay, well, there goes $500,000. But it's, so it happens, it can happen to anybody. But you have to,
But I did tell you, I said, it's not going to work out with these people and that thing's not going to work out.
Do you know in 2021, there were the largest largest growth
Women
of
have an
millionaires.
intuition.
Stop. Okay, stop it. Okay, look, you told me you weren't going to throw this in my face anymore, so stop.
Okay.
Stop laughing. Listen, okay?
Okay.
In 2021, we had an increase of over 2.5 million millionaires in the United States. Mm-hmm. We only have 22 million millionaires right now anyway, and we increased 22 millionaires or 20 millionaires at that time probably by 2.5 million people. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's incredible. And that was the pandemic, right? 2021, mm-hmm. That was the pandemic. Mm-hmm. What people would call a downturn or, obviously some chaos going on in the world, we had more millionaires probably than any other time in history.
And especially the mom influencers, that really blew up during that time.
Oh, yeah. I saw some statistic a while back. I think they took it in it were probably around the same time, 2020 mm-hmm. or something like that. 33% of the millionaires in the United States are female.
Right. And
that's a pretty incredible number. I think if you asked normal people, most people would not come up with that percentage.
Right.
They probably say how many of the millionaires in the world, there's in the United States, 22.5%, or 22 million millionaires, I got that out, are in the United States. How many of those do you think are women? What percentage of that do you think are women? I think a lot of people would keep that number somewhere in the 5 to 10%.
Well, I guess I was a little bit surprised. I remember my agents and I remember a lot of the influence, what is it? The community of influencers. I remember them saying, if you ever become a mom, it's over. it's done. Those days are done. And I remember being a little bit nervous, and that's why I hid that was honestly and sadly, that was one of the reasons I hid my pregnancy. I remember hosting the Super Bowl, what was it, in San Francisco?
Yeah, when you were in San Francisco.
Right. I wore a baby doll dress because my legs were thin. I wore my high heels. And nobody knew.
Pregnant as all get out.
I was a couple weeks away from having a baby, and nobody knew.
You're probably about a month. You're probably about a month out.
A month out, maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah, because we were still in the U.S. We came back to the U.S. for that.
Yeah, and so we went back home to Canada to have the baby. But I remember hugging people on the red carpet and just really pulling out my baby so nobody felt it, but a couple people did. And I gave them, it was just this connection, shush. And they gave me the congratulations. It was all the communication was in the eyes. But it was just such a sad time because everybody said, if you have a baby, it's over, it's all over. But during the pandemic, because who is the one that's doing the shopping? It's the moms, it's the wives. They're the ones doing the shopping. And all of a sudden, the baby stuff blew up and just everything to do with moms blew up hardcore.
Well, it's
crazy.
such a unique time in history that moms, we were just listening to that lady talk about her business. Who I don't remember her name.
I don't remember her name, but
I mean, her husband
was a dentist, a successful dentist,
and she's doing this side hustle, right? And then all of a sudden, it becomes the main hustle. She's,
right, and that happens to so many influencers.
Okay, I think I'm going to quit.
Right.
So my wife, I can watch the kids, and my wife can go full out in this business and support the whole family. I mean, that's I don't know if I could deal with that.
And she's not going to work, but she's at home. And he said, don't get me wrong, my business was so successful, but it didn't give us our goal. And I didn't realize it at the time, but when this opportunity came up and she was making more money than me, it gave me freedom. And
he said he was trading hours for dollars, basically.
Exactly.
So he would go to work and he'd be at work all day. He wouldn't be able to see his family.
Right.
This opportunity gave him the chance
to go to Disneyland,
both be there at the same time.
Right. And if they wanted to go to Disneyland the very next day, they could. But with his job, he didn't have the freedom. So that was something that they sat down, talked about. They had many conversations because this is a big deal. I mean, they said that the family was calling him crazy. I mean, she supported him as a nurse to become a dentist, and then all of a sudden they think he's throwing it all away. But they're making millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, when me and Charles started Tap Out, I remember at some point he was in this internal affairs investigation, and I remember him coming to me one day and going, "You know what? I'm quitting today." Mm-hmm. And I said, "What do you mean you're quitting? We don't quit. We're police officers. You know, this Tap Out thing is our side hustle." Mm-hmm. He said, "No, I'm leaving. I'm tired of this. They're after
His
me.
heart's not in
it. I can't deal with this anymore." And he says, "I'm turning my badge today." I said, "You're crazy." I mean, I'm his partner, and I shouldn't be telling him this, but I'm like, "Man, what are you thinking? It was so hard getting our jobs, and now you're going to go quit."
Yeah.
And this is your dream job. And he went in and quit that day, and I'll never forget. He came back to me that afternoon, and I was working. I'm a police officer too, and he came to me and said, "You can't quit your job because you have to pay our bills for now." And I'm like, "What?
Sugar daddy."
Oh my gosh, what did we just do? But I knew, so I stayed on for another 3 years, I think. And until I got to the point where I saw us missing opportunities. Right. And we were making enough to just barely pay our own rents and pay our own bills. Yeah. And all we would do is literally write a check out of the business for our bills. Like I would write his rent payment, and I would write my rent payment when I quit. I would write my rent payment, which was about the same, and then we give each other a little bit of extra cash, and we had to live off that.
Wow.
And that's when I knew. I said, I have to quit now because at that point, 3 years later, because we were missing opportunities. There were things coming up like the opportunity to sell at this event that I couldn't make it to because I had to work or I wanted to, or we were going to a UFC and we were going to be able to give out these clothes and these things and do these things that I couldn't do still working at my job.
Yeah, you were locked in.
So I knew it was time, and I just had to, it was time to make that leap and go, look, I know, even though I'll be making less when I quit, I'm still only going to be able to barely write that check, that same check where I'm going to be able to pay my rent and like, I want to say like $300 after that. So it was like $300 plus paying our rent, which you can't live on. But it was that leap that I know if I do this, I knew if I flew to this event in Hawaii and I sold our clothes there, we'd probably make about $4,000. Half of that would be cost of the clothes. We'd end up with about $2,000 cost of the flights and hotels, another $1,000. So we walk away with $1,000. That alone, just that one thing, is an extra $500 each.
Right.
So if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. And I know I would rather be doing that, working on my business, on my dream, on this thing that were building, than going to work what I felt like was not what I wanted to do anymore in life.
Right.
So it was time to make that leap. And I think that's the question that anybody has to ask. Can I just pay my bills? Can I pay my bills? And if I can do that, is it time to quit? I mean, is it time to make that decision that what I really love to do, what I see as my purpose in life and my passion in life, is it time to quit this job that is maybe paying the bills right now, that is supporting my family, to go do this side hustle? Well, I think it is. Yeah. And that's the question. I think if you had to ask one question, well, probably two. One, who's at risk? What's at risk?
Yeah, exactly.
Your house payment, your car payment. Don't get into a new car payment at the time if you don't have to. If you have a car, try not to get more liabilities, more payments on your more liabilities that you're going to have to be responsible for.
Exactly.
If you go quit your job, and then make that leap. And one of the questions you can ask yourself, I heard another story of another entrepreneur maybe a year ago, that he said that he was able to slowly remove a day one by one. So he was working 5 days a week, and then he went down to 4 days a week, and then they let him go down to 3 days a week, and then 2, and then pretty soon he was working 1 day a week, and then another, what do I want to say? He got a new manager, and the manager came in and said, "What do you do here? You're the only employee that works 1 day a week. What do you even do here?" And he said, "Nothing. I don't do anything here. I literally just show up because he's kind of the guy that like overlooks everybody else's jobs and makes sure, if they have a problem, they come to him." So they both agreed that it was time for him to quit. And so the decision was kind of made for him.
Right.
But being able to take 1 day off at a time
or
really
even some
helped him.
kind of leave, like a trial period, because you don't want to, if you're not sure, you don't want to just quit. You may be able to take a little bit of a, like, what is it, a leave, a holiday?
Yeah, you could take a leave. Yeah, you could take a leave. That's a good idea. I mean, if that's possible, that's probably a great idea. If you can take a leave, and then that way, if something wasn't to work out, and I say, I'm one of those guys, and you are too, we're burn the ships type of people. In fact, I owned that .com for a long time until I sold it a few years back.
I was a little less worried because in construction, it's a high ticket sale. The only problem, and I'm not saying we've never had that problem, was if the concrete doesn't get put down right and they're not happy with it and you have to rip it out, then that's going to cost you money. But if you have other contracts on top of that and they've given you the deposit, you can cover that. You obviously don't want to pay for that because it's very expensive to replace concrete with the labor and the concrete itself. And obviously you want to have a good word of mouth name, but I'm not going to lie, it had happened to us a few times, and that was very scary. But knowing that you have it's a big ticket sale, so you sleep a little more comfortably at night. I think I'd be a little more nervous starting a t-shirt brand. I mean, what are you making? Really, per t-shirt?
But the difference
you get a
is
big contract?
We had an online business, so we were like one of the first online companies. And selling clothing for sure. At that time, nobody else was selling clothing online. If you went to like Hurley's website or any of these other clothing companies' websites, they directed you to stores. They said, "Oh, go to this store or that store." Nobody wanted to sell online because the stores actually wouldn't let them. So we were selling online, and I always thought it was weird. We would come in, and every day the same number would be so close. Like we were making maybe, I don't know, $1,000 a day or $2,000 a day or something like that, $3,000 a day. It started going up slowly.
Right.
And, but it was always the same number. Not the exact same number, but it would be like 2,700 and the next day would be 3,000 200, and the next day it'd be 3,100. It was like so weird. I remember asking the question to myself, why is it always close to the same number? But anyways, we were an online business. And so we kind of knew at that time we were an online business, we kind of knew what money to depend on.
Right. Exactly. And I think that was the comparison is we knew the manpower we had and we knew what we were capable of. So we knew pretty much how much money was coming in per month, unless there was a mistake.
And something else that you can think about is is there a possibility that you might be able to take a loan? I don't suggest doing it if you don't have to, but if you really have a vision and you really see that there's an opportunity to grow your company, this side hustle of yours, there may be somebody who wants to give you money, family, friends, banks, whatever that might be, and also factoring. It's called factoring. Contracts. So like somebody in the clothing business, and it works in a bunch of different product-based businesses. If you get a sale from a place like, let's say Whole Foods, if you were selling food, and they give you a PO for, $47,000 worth of product, you can factor that contract with them, the PO with them, and get paid on that up front by a factoring company. So they'll give you the $47,000, and in return, or they'll give you less than that. They'll give you like $3,000, $44,000, whatever the number is, and they take the difference. So when Whole Foods actually pays them, they get the full $47,000. You give them a percentage of that. So things like that allow you to have that upfront money, so you're not actually carrying that money. It allows you to be able to live and have the money you need to be able to support the business.
I don't know. I didn't want to take any kind of loan. I just really wanted to bootstrap and do it myself.
And that's a good thing. That's how I prefer to do it.
If you have the credit and you have a credit card, you could probably bootstrap, because the more they see that credit card getting paid off every month, they extend and extend and extend. So it got extended to a crazy
Yeah, but I think there's a moment when you really
get
believe,
really good credit,
without a shadow of a doubt, you believe in your heart and mind that if I was here more, I would make more money.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. And so that gives you the confidence to go, look, you can show your spouse if you need to. You can go, look.
Well, they're the ones that will probably notice. I remember that other influencer, and it's crazy how a lot of these influencers have blown up, but they have other businesses behind it. But he was really reluctant because he said, I was going to be the next Steve Jobs. That's how I saw myself. And it was just hard for him to just accept the fact that he was going to support his wife and be behind the scenes. But if you see it, you'll know that there's an opportunity. You'll know.
Yeah, and what's that conversation sound like with your wife? Because imagine you have your business, and your wife might be helping you in it too. She might be a part of it, but she might not know the ins and outs of the business and actually what's, she might be contributing, but she might also be a housewife, and so she's contributing. Or vice versa, the other way around.
Right.
What's that conversation sound like when you go to them and you say, look, I'm thinking about quitting my job?
Well, I think you really have to put your goals and your visions on the table. That's the most important. Every successful entrepreneur that I know, they don't keep their goals and their visions to themselves. This even if it's the husband's business or the wife's business, they really need to communicate on their joint goals and visions for the family. Is it freedom that they want? Is it, are they okay with not taking a holiday? Are they okay with one of their spouses just sitting in this business that they're, for example, the dentist? Are you okay with that life that we can't just get up and go if we want to? You have less freedom. You're making pretty good money, but you have less freedom.
But you have stability.
But you have stability. Right, exactly. So those are all questions, and those are all the conversations that you really need to have with your spouse. And you have to make sure you're both on the same page, because otherwise that's where the resentment sets in. That's where the the hurt sets in, because the truth is every wife, and usually it's the wife pulling and supporting the husband's vision. I know I did that for a while with you, and I really was supporting you, but it was hard. And when we didn't have the communication, I think we should have had the talk before, like, if this doesn't go well. I think we just thought everything was going to go well, and there wasn't.
Yeah, I think
there was
that's
a lot
problem.
of
I mean, you're on this
blurred
shared
lines.
journey together. That was kind of
Right.
early in our relationship, and I think what I didn't realize is that I was still feeling like everything rested on my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I felt like I didn't need to have that conversation when, if you're going to have, and we weren't married at the time either.
Oh,
So-
I was talking about the last
one. So, I mean, at this time, I just think that that's so important to have that conversation with your wife, because you're on this journey together.
She's given up her career. She's given up her identity. She's given up her life. And it's just, are we going to have we didn't have the freedom. And honestly, I felt like a married single mom, and it wasn't what we had a lot of freedom in our lives before we got married. I mean, I'm not so frustrated about that time of our lives, because we were both trying to figure stuff out. And then there came the conversation when we sat down and said, listen, you're doing your own thing, I'm doing my own thing, and we're kind of going in different directions. And I feel like if it keeps going this way, how are we going to grow together as a couple? Why don't we do something together? And you had invested in a couple things that were really pulling you away from the relationship.
Yeah, they were like startups. I was having to put a lot of time into them.
So that was the frustration. And I said, "What? You said we're both really smart, and we've done this before. Why don't we build something together?" And then we were looking for that thing, and we started a few things. But right now we're in a different part of our life, but some exciting opportunity came up, but we didn't have a deep conversation of what it could look like. We kind of assumed everything this guy told us was Bible, but his company was falling apart. And then that took so much of you away from the kids, and we started growing apart. And it was just not the vision that it wasn't something you needed to do at this point of your life. You're not, what is it? You're not a beginner. You're already
it was like a
successful.
startup again.
And that's not the life. That's not the life.
I think that's what's it really, I mean, the core of it for anybody who's listening, that when you're thinking about, when that thought starts creeping into your mind, that it's time to have that conversation with your spouse, that, do I, at this point, am I mentally fit to quit my job and go do this side hustle and make it my main hustle, where everything is going to rest on our shoulders now, like there's no guarantee of money coming in anymore. What are the things that can happen? What are the things that can come out of left field because if we don't have money coming in that month and I can't make the house payment, we could be on the streets. Right. That's the truth.
Yeah.
So, do you have a savings set aside? Do you have some runway in case
important.
You don't have money coming in one month? And if you don't, because I didn't, I had a credit card, and I thought I could use my credit card if I had to for maybe 2 months. It'd probably get me by for about 2 months. I think it was enough to get me by for about 2 months.
Yeah.
But if we go beyond that, I'm on the streets.
Yeah.
But I felt so strongly that we could grow by putting more time into the business, that I just threw all caution to the wind at that point. I knew that if I was in there more, we would make more money. And it might not be a lot of more money, but I saw there was a projection of growth, because we were doing year after year, we were growing 300% in revenue. And that was, for those first few years, I mean, it wasn't a lot. It was like we were making $30,000 our first year, $100,000 our second year, and $300,000 our third year. And that's the year I quit. It wasn't a lot, But at the end of the day, I saw where the business was going,
Yeah.
and I thought it's time to quit.
And pray about it too. I know maybe you believe in that, maybe you don't, but I believe in the power of prayer, and the answers will come. I watched my mom do it when she started her new businesses. She went from the mechanic shop with my dad, and then she became a single mom with 2 kids, and she prayed, and she got the craziest ideas and answers come to her, and she just went with it. It started with the antique shop and then the jewelry store, which was always a dream of hers. But the way that it fell, it's crazy because it was always a dream of hers, and the opportunity just popped up. It was such an easy transition where she had the antique store. There was a jewelry store next door, and she'd always look at it like a little, not in envy, but wow, they're so lucky that they have this jewelry store, and they needed to get out of the jewelry store. And they came to my mom with the conversation and a really great deal that she couldn't resist. And even the guys that sold her the equipment to weigh the jewelry, because we sold the jewelry by weight, to angels. She said they were angels. They just came in and they taught her how to use this equipment. And it's weird how
that should have
everything
been our first thing.
falls
That should have been number one.
into place.
The power of prayer.
I feel with everything
can't
we've
stress it
done,
enough.
everything we've done, I feel there was the power of prayer. And now more than ever in this season of our lives, we really lay our lives and our children's lives into a faith-filled life. We're there and we're fully committed. So if you guys don't believe in the power of prayer, just try it and see what happens.
It's everything now to us, and I wish it was something I would have done more in my younger days. I think it would have made my life so much easier.
But it's funny because I feel you were from a faith-filled family, and as myself,
I think I did my own version of prayer. I mean, I prayed for sure.
Oh, I always prayed.
But it just wasn't as.
I feel like
frequently.
Sometimes you go a little bit, you stray a little bit, but then you come home.
Yeah.
And sometimes God's yanking on your sleeve saying, come home. And he'll have to do something, not that he has to, but it's your journey. And for my journey, something really drastic happened. Something really there is just no way to not come home. And I feel that that's the blessing in the journey. And never, guys, if you have something hard come into your life, never look at it as a negative thing. Look at it as a blessing, because there's a reason for everything. And don't be the victim, be the victor, because it's so powerful. You are so lucky if you've had tragedy in your life. I know it's hard to understand why when we're going through it, when we're going through the loss of someone or a very scary health struggle, fight. The warriors out there, you'll understand. The days that it's happening, you don't really understand, but you sure count your blessings. And if you have that mindset, everything just switches of, wow, another day, another day, another day.
And even for small things.
Yeah.
Prayer is good for small things. And this might be a small thing, but it's a big thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's
life-changing.
It's your family.
It's really life-changing.
And you have a lot of people depending on you. And if you're thinking about quitting your job, it's time to get down on your knees and say a prayer. And I believe the answers will come to you. Thank you guys for listening today. If you guys actually have a side hustle, and we'd love to hear about it, message us on Instagram. And we would love to hear your stories about how your struggle and juggle and you decide to start a side hustle or quit your main hustle to do your side hustle. We'd love to hear your story.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of Pretty and Punk Podcast, and we will catch you guys next week.
God bless. Thank you for joining us. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Pretty and Punk Podcast. If you want to see more, click the red subscribe button below. Or it's black. Either way, whatever color it is, click it so you can see more of our videos. Make sure to click the thumbs up button. It really helps us. See you guys next week. God bless. We love you.
Thank you for listening. I hope that changed your life. God bless. See you next time.